everybody. So we're continuing on Children of Blood and Bone. Now we're starting with Chapter 10. And we are continuing on with Zelly's perspective from Chapter 9, where we had this epicness that she finally discovered magic. We realized Mama Agba's got partial magic back. She realizes that she has to go on this quest, so hero's journey again, to bring magic back. And she's not totally accepted that she has to go yet, but then she realizes that she has to save her family because this fire has started out. And we're obviously going to make this inference that it's Inan somehow that started this fire within the village. And she goes to save her family. And she can't find them at first. And in a rage almost kills Amari. But finally sees her family in the ocean waiting on her as they've been saved. So we're continuing on from that with Chapter 10. We float to a small inlet across the northern coast in silence. Unable to speak after such horror. Though the crashing waves grow loud, the memory of BC's screams crashes even louder in my head. 4 deaths. 4 people who couldn't escape the flames. I brought the fire to Aloran. Their blood stains my hands. I grip my shoulders to keep everything inside as Mama Agba dresses our injuries with cloth ripped from her skirt. Though we made it through the flames, small burns and blisters dot our skin. But the pain is welcome. Almost deserved. The sears on my skin are nothing compared to the guilt that scalds my heart. A sharp pressure clamps my stomach as the memory of a burnt corpse crystallizes behind my eyes. Charred skin peeling from every limb, the stench of burning flesh still coloring my every breath. They're in a better place. I try to ease my guilt. If their spirits have ascended to the peace of Alafia, death would almost be a gift. But if they suffered too much before they died, I close my eyes and try to swallow the thought. If the trauma of their deaths was too much, their spirits won't rise to the afterlife. They'll stay in a padi, an eternal hell, reliving the worst of their pain. When we land on the rocky stretch of sand, Tizane helps Amari while I tend to Baba. I promised I wouldn't mess this up. Now our entire village is in flames. I stare at the jagged rocks, unable to meet my father's eyes. Baba should have sold me to the stocks. If he had, he'd finally have peace. Baba's silence only intensifies my misery. But when he bends down to meet my gaze, tears soften his eyes. You can't run from this, Zelly. Not now. He takes my hands. This is the second time these monsters took our home. Let it be the last. Baba... I can't believe his fury. Since the raid, he hasn't whispered a single curse against the monarchy. I thought he'd given up all fight. As long as we don't have magic, they will never treat us with respect. They need to know we can hit them back. If they burn our homes, we burn theirs too. Tizane's mouth falls open and he locks eyes with me. We haven't seen this man for 11 years. We didn't know he was still alive. Baba, take Nayla, he orders. The guards are close. We don't have much time. He points across the shore to the northern coast, where 5 figures in royal armor herd the survivors together. The flickering light of the flames illuminates the seal on one soldier's helmet. The captain. The same one who chased me and Amari. He burned my home to the ground. Come with us, Tizane argues. We can't leave you behind. I can't. I'll only slow you down. But Baba, no. He cuts Tizane off, rising to place a hand on his shoulder. Mama Agba told me about her vision. It's you 3 who will lead the fight. You need to go to Chenoble, and figure how to bring magic back. My throat tightens. I clutch Baba's hand. They already found us once. If they're after us, they'll come after you too. We'll be long gone by then, Mama Agba assures me. Who better to evade the guards than a seer? Tizane looks back and forth between Mama Agba and Baba, his jaw clenching as he fights to keep his face even. I don't know if he can leave Baba behind. Tizane doesn't know his place without keeping others safe. How will we find you? I whisper. Bring magic back for good, Mama Agba says. As long as I have my visions, I'll always know where to go. You have to leave. Baba presses, forceful as a new round of screams rings out. One guard grabs an elderly woman by her hair and holds a sword to her throat. Baba, no! I try to pull him forward, but he overpowers me, kneeling down to wrap his arms around my shaking frame. He holds me tighter than he has in years. Your mother. His voice cracks. A small sob escapes my throat. She loved you fiercely. She would be so proud right now. I cling to Baba so hard that my nails dig into his skin. He squeezes me back before rising to embrace Tzain. Though Tzain towers over Baba in height and might, Baba matches the ferocity of his hug. They hold each other for a long moment, as if they never have to let go. I'm proud of you, son. No matter what, I'll always be proud. Tzain hurriedly wiped his tears away. He's not one to show his emotions. He saves his pain for the isolation of night. I love you, Baba whispers to us both. We love you too, I croak. He gestures at Tzain to mount Nayla. Amari follows, silent tears leaking onto her cheeks. Despite my grief, a prickle of anger flares. Why is she crying? Once again, her family's the reason mine is being torn apart. Mama Agba kisses my forehead and wraps her arms around me tight. Be careful, but be strong. I sniffle and nod, though I feel everything but strength. I'm scared, weak. I'm gonna let them down. Take care of your sister, Baba reminds Tzain as I mount the saddle. And Nayla, be good. Protect them. Nayla licks Baba's face and nuzzles his head, a sign of promise she'll always keep. My chest seizes when she walks forward, traveling away from my heart and my home. When I turn back, Baba's face shines with a rare smile. I pray we'll live to see that smile again. Okay, so that was a really short chapter, but a really important one. So what more have we developed about Baba, about Zeli, and where is our plot going from here too? So what are those important main ideas from chapter 10? Make sure you're writing them down and then writing a 3-sentence summary of chapter 10. So chapter 11, we're now seeing Anand's perspective. So now we can see really how did this fire start? Is it truly his fault and what's going on? Count to 10. I whisper to myself. Count to 10. Because when I finish counting, this horror shall end. The blood of the innocent will not stain my hands. 1. 2. I grip Father Sinet palm with a shaking hand, so tight the metal stings. The numbers rise, but nothing changes. Like Aloran, all my plans have gone up in flames. My throat tightens when the village falls in a fiery blaze, taking the homes of hundreds with it. My soldiers drag the corpses through the sand, bodies charred beyond recognition. The shrieks of the living and the injured fill my ears. My tongue tastes nothing but ash. So much waste. Death. This was not my plan. Amari should be in one hand, the diviner thief chained in the other. Kia should have retrieved the scroll. Only the diviner's hut need have been burned. If I had succeeded in returning the scroll, Father would have understood. He would have thanked me for my discretion, praised my shrewd judgment in sparing Aloran. Our fish trade would be protected. The only threat to the monarchy would be crushed. But I've failed. Again. After begging Father for another chance, the scroll is still missing, my sister at risk, an entire village wiped away. Yet I have nothing to show for it. The people of Orisha are not safe. Baba! I grab my blade as a small child hurls his body to the ground. His cries cut through the night. It's only then I discover the sand-covered corpse at his feet. Baba! He grasps at the body, willing it to wake. The blood of his father stains the skin of his small brown hands. Abini! A woman trudges through the wet sand. She gasps at the sight of the approaching guards. Abini, no, you must be quiet. Baba wants you to be quiet. I turn away and squeeze my eyes shut, forcing my bile down. Duty before self. I hear Father's voice. The safety of Orisha before my conscience. But these villagers are Orisha. They're the very people I've sworn to protect. This is a mess. Admiral Kia stomps to my side, knuckles bloody from beating the soldier who lit the fire too soon and started the blaze. I fight the urge to walk over and beat him myself as he lies moaning in the wet sand. Get up and bind their wrists. Kia barks at the guard before lowering her voice again. We don't know if the fugitives are dead or alive. We don't even know if they came back here. We'll have to round up the survivors. I release a frustrated breath. Hope that one of them... My voice trails off as a vile sensation crawls up my skin. Like in the market, the heat prickles my scalp. It pulses as a thin wisp of air floats toward me. A strange turquoise cloud cutting through the black smoke. Do you see that? I ask Kia. I point, stepping back at the smoke slithers near. The strange cloud carries the scent of the sea, overwhelming the bite of ash in the air. See what? Kia asks. But I don't have a chance to respond. The turquoise cloud passes through my fingers. A foreign image of the diviner ignites in my head. The sound around me fades out. Turning murky and muddled, the cold sea washes over me as the moonlight and fire fade from above. I see the girl who haunts my thoughts, sinking among the corpses and driftwood, falling into the blackness of the sea. She doesn't fight the current that pulls her down. She relinquishes control, sinking into death. As my vision fades, I return to the screaming villagers and shifting sand. Something stings under my skin, the same bite that started when I last saw the diviner's face. Suddenly all the pieces come together, the thrashing, the vision. I should have known all along. Magic. My stomach twists and knots. I rake my nails over my tingling arms. I have to get this virus out of me. I need to rip the treacherous sensation from my skin. Inan, focus. I squeeze Father's Senate pawn so hard my knuckles crack. I swore to him that I was prepared, but how in the skies could I have prepared for this? Count to 10. I whisper again, gathering all the pieces like pawns. By the time I hiss 5, a terrifying realization hits. The diviner girl has the scroll. The spark I felt when she brushed against me, the electric energy that surged through my veins and when our eyes locked. Skies, she must have infected me. Nausea churns inside my stomach. Before I can stop myself, this morning's roasted swordfish fights its way up. I double over as vomit burns my throat and hits the sand with a splash. Inan! Kia wrinkles her nose as I cough, a hint of concern eclipsed by her disgust. She probably thinks me weak, but better than her discovering the truth. I clench my fist, almost positive I can feel the magic attacking my blood. If magi can infect us now, they'll defeat us before we have a chance to take them out. She was here. I wipe my mouth on the back of my hand. The diviner with the scroll. We need to locate her before she hurts anyone else. What? Kia's thin brows crease. How do you know? I open my mouth to explain when the sickening sting erupts from my scalp again. I turn. The prickle grows. It's strongest when I face the southern forest. Though the air stinks of charred flesh and black smoke, I catch the fleeting scent of the sea again. It's her. It has to be. Hiding among the trees. Inan, Kia snaps. What do you mean? How do you know she was here? Magic. My grip tightens around the tarnished pawn. My palm itches at the touch. The word feels dirtier than maggot. If I can hardly stomach the idea, how will Kia react? A villager, I lied. He told me they went south. Where's the villager now? I point blindly at a corpse, but my finger lands on the scorched body of a child. Another turquoise cloud shoots toward me, all rosemary and ash. Before I can run away, the cloud passes through my hand with sickening heat. The world fades out in a wall of flames. Screams bleed into my ear. Help! Inan! I snap back to reality. A cold tide rushes over my boots. The beach. I squeeze the pawn. We're still on the beach. What happened? Kia asks. You were moaning. I whip around looking for the girl. She has to be behind this. She's using her wretched magic to fill my head with sounds. Enon? We should interrogate them. I ignore the concern in Kia's eyes. If one of the villagers knew where they were headed, another might have information too. Kia hesitates and purses her lips. She probably wants to pry, but her duty as admiral comes first. It always will. We walk over to the surviving villagers. I focus on the tide to ignore their shrieks, but the screaming only grows louder as we draw near. 7, I count in my head. 8, 9. I am the son of Orisha's greatest ruler. I am their future king. Silence! My voice booms into the night with a power that doesn't feel like my own. Even Kia gives me a surprised glance as she cries quiet into nothingness. We're looking for Zeli Adabola. She has stolen something valuable from the crown. We were told she's heading south, and now we need to know why. I scan the dark faces of those who refuse to meet my eyes, searching for any sign of the truth. Their fear soaks into the air like humidity. It seeps into my own skin. Gods, please, if he kills me, in the gods' names, did she steal? My heart slams against my chest as their voices attack and flickers, broken thoughts that threaten to overwhelm me. More turquoise clouds rise into the air. Like wasps, they dart toward me. I start to fall back into the blackness of my mind. Answer him! Thank the skies. Kia's bark pulls me back. I blink and grip the pommel of my sword. The smooth metal grounds me in reality. With time, their fear fades, but the unnerving sensation remains. I said answer him, Kia growls. Do not make me repeat myself. The villagers keep their gazes to the ground. In their silence, Kia lunges. Screams erupt as she grabs an elderly woman by her gray hair. Kia drags the moaning woman through the sand. Admiral, my voice chokes when Kia unsheaths her sword. She places the blade against the woman's wrinkled neck. A single drop of blood falls into the ground. You want to stay silent? Kia hisses. Stay silent and you die. We don't know anything, a young girl cries out. Everyone on the beach freezes. The girl's hands are trembling. She shoves them into the sand. We can tell you about her brother and father. We can tell you of her skill with a staff, but not a soul in Aloran knows where she's gone or why. I give Kia a stern look. She drops the woman like a rag doll. I trudge through the wet sand until I reach the girl. Her shaking intensifies as I approach, but I can't tell if it's her fear or the cold of the night tides licking her knees. All she wears is a soaked nightgown ripped and frayed around her being. What's your name? Standing this close to her, I see how her oak-brown skin stands out against the darker chestnut and mahogany hues of the villagers. Perhaps there's some nobility in her blood. A father who played in the mud. When she doesn't answer, I bend down, keeping my voice low. The faster you answer, the faster we leave. Yemi, she chokes out. Her hands grip the sand as she speaks. I'll tell you everything you want to know, but only if you leave us alone. I nod. A simple concession. Duty or not, I don't want to see more bodies. I can't bear to hear more screams. I reach down and untie the rope, binding her wrists. She flinches at my touch. Give us the information we need, and I promise your people will be safe. Safe? Yemi meets my eyes with a hatred that impales me like a sword. Though her mouth never opens, her voice rings in my skull. Safe ended a long time ago. Okay, so a big portion of this is now we don't know totally what's going on with Anon. He's hearing people's thoughts. He was able to almost see and smell in the direction that Zeli had went when they left off, and he feels like magic is attacking him. But we know that Zeli didn't actually do any magic at him. So based on this, I want you to make an inference. What's going on with Anon? What do you think is going on with him? What's happened to him? What is this magic that's surrounding him? What is this turquoise cloud going through? So again, with Chapter 11, Anon's our focus. Hit 3 to 4 main ideas and write your summary of it. Also think about with this one, Colors are always important, so is there any significance to this cloud of smoke being turquoise? What does it mean? And why do you think, or sorry, no, go on. What more have we discovered about Enon's character and what he believes and what's going on here? So, chapter 12, we're back to Zelly. My eyes ache from hours of silent tears by the time we halt Nayla to the rest. It takes all 5 seconds for her and Tzain to pass out on the moss-covered ground, escaping our fractured reality for the safety of sleep. Amari inspects the ground, shivering in the forest cold. She eventually lays her cloak down and sleeps on top of it, too regal to grace the earth with her bare head. I stare at her, remembering how close I dragged her to the flames. The memory feels distant now, like someone else held all that hate. Now only cool anger simmers. Anger I shouldn't bother feeling. I'd bet 500 silver pieces she won't last another day. I wrap myself in my cloak and nestle into Nayla, relishing the sensation of the soft fur against my skin. Through the shadowed leaves, the star-filled sky reignites the magic of Mama Agba's vision in my mind. It's back, I whisper to myself. With the insanity of the day, that fact is still hardest to believe. We can reclaim our magic. We can thrive again. Oya. I whisper the name of the goddess of life and death, my sister deity who has granted me magic's gift. As a child, I called to her so often you'd think she slept in my cot. But now that I search for the words of a prayer, I don't know what to say. Pa mi soro, I attempt, but it lacks all the conviction and power Mama Agba's chant had. She believed in her connection to Uranmila, so much she could conjure a premonition. Right now, I just want to believe that someone is up there. My attempt at pronunciation. Ranmi Olo, I pray instead. Help me. Those words feel so much realer, so much more like my own. Mama Agba says you've chosen me. Baba agrees, but I'm scared. This is too important. I don't want to screw it up. Saying it out loud makes the fear tangible, a new weight hanging in the air. I couldn't even protect Baba. How am I supposed to save the Magi? But as the fear breathes, I get the smallest sense of comfort. The idea that Oya could be here, right by my side. Gods only know there's no way I can get through this without her. Just help me, I repeat once more. Please. And keep Baba safe. No matter what happens, just let him and Mama Agba be okay. Not knowing what else to say, I bow my head. Though stiff, I almost feel like I can see my prayers drifting to the sky. I hold on to the brief moment of contentment it grants me, forcing it above the pain, the fear, the grief. I hold it until it cradles me in its arms, rocking me to sleep. When I wake, something feels off, unnatural, not quite right. I rise expecting to find Nayla's sleeping mass, but she's nowhere to be seen. The forest is gone, no trees, no moss. Instead, I sit in a field of towering reeds whistling with the burst of wind in the air. What is this? I whisper, confused by the fresh sensation and light. I look down at my hands and jerk my head back. No scars or burns stain my skin. It's as clear as the day I was born. I rise in the endless field of reeds, stretching far and wide. Even when I'm on my feet, the stems and leaves grow far above my head. In the distance, the plants are obscured, blurring into white at the horizon. It's as if I wander in an unfinished painting, trapped inside its canvased reeds. I'm not asleep, yet I'm not awake. I float in a magical world between. Dirt shifts under my feet as I move through the heavenly plants. Minutes seem to stretch into hours, yet I don't mind the time in this haze. The air is cool and crisp, like the mountain of Abaddon, where I grew up. Maybe it's a sanctuary, I think to myself, a gift of rest from the gods. I'm ready to embrace the thought when I sense the presence of another. My heart skips a beat as I turn, All breath seems to cease when realization dawns. I recognize the smolder in his amber eyes first, a look I could never forget after today. But now that he's standing still without a sword or surrounded by flames, I take in the curve of his muscles, the bright hue of his copper skin, the strange white streak in his hair. When he's this still, the features he shares with Amari are stark, impossible to miss. He's not just the captain, he's the prince. He stares at me for a long moment, as if I'm a corpse risen from the dead. But then he clenches his fists. Release me from this prison at once. Release you? I arch my brow in confusion. I didn't do this. You expect me to believe that, when I've seen your wretched face in my head all day. He reaches for his sword, but there's nothing there. For the first time, I notice we both wear simple white clothes, vulnerable without our weapons. My face? I ask slowly. Don't feign ignorance, the prince snaps. I felt what you did to me in Lagos, and those voices. End these attacks at once. End them or you'll pay. His rage stirs with a lethal heat, but the threat is lost as I ponder his words. He thinks I brought him here. He thinks this meeting is by my hand. Impossible. Though I was too young for Mama to teach me the magic of death, I saw it unfold. It came in cold spirits and sharp arrows and twisting shadows, but never in dreams. I didn't even touch the scroll until after we escaped Lagos, after our eyes locked and electric energy tickled my skin. If magic brought us here, it can't be my own. It has to be... You? I breathe in amazement. How is this possible? The royal family lost magic generations ago. A magi hasn't touched the throne in years. Me what? My eyes return to the streak of white in his hair, running from his temple to the nape of his neck. You did this. You brought me here. Every muscle in the prince's body goes rigid. The anger in his eyes transforms to terror. A cold breeze whips between us. The reeds dance in our silence. Liar, he decides. You're just trying to get into my head. No, little prince. It's you who's gotten into mine. Mama's old stories prickle through my memories. Tales of the 10 clans and the different magic each could wield. As a child, all I wanted to learn about were the Reapers, like Mama. But she insisted I know just as much about every other clan. She always warned me about the Connectors, magi who wielded power over mind, spirit, and dreams. Those are the ones you must watch out for, little Zell. They use magic to break into your head. The memory chills my blood. But the prince is so distraught it's difficult to fear his abilities. With the way he stares at his shaking hands, he looks like he would sooner take his own life than use magic to go after mine. But how is this even happening? Diviners are selected by the gods at birth. The prince wasn't born a diviner, and Poseidon can't develop magic. How has he suddenly become a magi now? I look at our surroundings, inspecting the work of his connector abilities. The magical reeds twist in the wind, ignorant of the impossibilities blowing all around us. The power required for a feat like this is inconceivable. Even a well-seasoned connector would need an incantation to pull it off. How could he harness the Ashe in his blood to create this, when he didn't even realize he was a magi? What in the gods' names is going on? My eyes go back to the jagged white streak running through the prince's hair, the only true marker of a magi. Our hair is always as stark and white as the snow that covers the mountain tops of Abaddon, a marker so dominant even the blackest dye couldn't hide the magi hair for more than a few hours. Though I've never seen a streak like his among magi or diviners, I can't deny its existence. It mirrors the whiteness of my hair all the same. But what does it mean? I look to the skies. What game are the gods playing? What if the prince isn't the only one? If the royals are regaining their magic... No. I can't let fear make me spiral out of control. If royals were getting their magic back, we would already know. I suck in a deep breath, slowing my mind before it can wander further. Amari had the scroll in Lagos. She crashed into her brother when we ran past. Though I don't understand why, it must have happened then. Enon awakened his powers the same way I awakened mine, by touching that damn scroll. And the king has touched the scroll, I remind myself. Amari, probably the admiral too. They didn't awaken any abilities. This magic only resides in him. Does your father know? The prince's eyes flash, giving me the answer I need. Of course not, I smirk. If the king knew, you'd already be dead. Color drains from his face. It's so perfect I almost laugh. How many diviners have fallen by his hands, been slaughtered, abused, used? How many lives has he taken to destroy the same magic now running through his veins? I'll make you a deal. I walk toward the prince. Leave me alone and I'll keep your little secret. No one has to know you're a dirty little meh, and the prince lunges. One moment his grip is around my throat, and the next, my eyes fly open. I'm greeted by the familiar sound of crickets and dancing leaves. Tizane's snores ring steady and true as Nayla adjusts her body against my side. I jolt forward and grab my staff to fight an enemy that isn't there. Though I scan the trees, it takes me moments to convince myself the prince won't appear. I breathe the damp air in and out. Trying to calm my nerves, I lay back down and close my eyes, but sleep doesn't return easily. I'm not sure it ever will. Now I know the prince's secret. Now he won't stop until I'm dead. Okay, so in this chapter we've discovered a lot more conflicts. So what I want you to make sure you're doing in your notes too is listing out all the different conflicts that are present within the story so far, and there's a lot. You have Zelly, who has multiple different conflicts, both internal and external conflicts. We have Inan, who has both internal and external conflicts, and then the overarching conflict between diviners, magi, and the monarchy at the same time here going throughout it. So what are all of these different conflicts that all of our characters are suffering through and having to find fruition and completion in within these conflicts? And make sure you're focusing on our three narrators specifically and the conflicts that they have here as well. So, chapter 13, we're continuing with Zelly. When I wake the next morning, I'm more exhausted than when I went to sleep. It leaves me feeling robbed, like a thief made off with my dreams. Slumber usually brings an escape, a break from the misery I face when I wake. But when every one of my dreams ended with the prince's hands wrapped around my throat, the nightmares hurt just as much as reality. Damn it, I mutter. They're just dreams. What do I have to fear? Even if his magic is powerful. Gods know he's far too terrified to use it. Tizane grunts across the small clearing as he does crunch after crunch with unwavering concentration, training as if this was his regular morning practice. Except there won't be another practice for him this year. Because of me, he may never play Agbon again. Guilt adds to my exhaustion, dragging me back to the ground. I could apologize for the rest of my days, and it still wouldn't be enough. But before I can sink further into my guilt, a flurry of movement catches my eyes. Amari stirs underneath a large brown cloak, waking from her royal slumber. The sigh puts a bitter taste in my mouth, reigniting the image of Inan. Knowing her family, I'm surprised she didn't slit our throats in our sleep. I search her dark hair for a streak to match her brother's, muscles relaxing when I find none. Gods only know how much worse this would be if she could trap me inside her head too. I'm still glaring at Amari when I recognize the cloak she's using as a blanket. I rise and crouch by Tizane's side. What do you think you're doing? He ignores me and keeps exercising. The bags under his eyes warn me to leave him alone, but I'm too angry to stop now. Your cloak, I hiss. Why did you give it to her? Tizane fits in 2 more crunches before muttering. She was shivering. And, he shoots back. We have no idea how long this trip will take. The last thing we need is her getting sick. You know she's used to that, right? People who look like you making sure she gets her way. Zell, she was cold, and I wasn't using my cloak. That's all there is to it. I turn back toward Amari and try to let it go. but in her eyes I see her brother's. I feel his hands around my throat. I want to trust her. No, you don't. Well, even if I did, I can't. Her father ordered the raid. Her brother burned down our village. What makes you think she's any different? Zell. Dezane's voice trails off as Amari approaches, always delicate and demure. I have no way of knowing if she's hurt us or not. Either way, I can't pretend I care. I think this is yours. She hands him the cloak. Thank you. Don't worry about it. Dezane takes the cloak and folds it into his pack. It'll be warmer as we get into the jungle, but let me know if you need it again. Amari smiles for the first time since we've met, and I bristle when Dezane smiles back. It should take more than a pretty face for him to forget she's the daughter of a monster. Is that all? I ask. Well, actually, her voice grows quiet. I was wondering, what are we planning to do for, A deep groan escapes Amari's stomach. Color rises to her cheeks and she grips her slim belly, failing to cage in another roar. Excuse me, she apologizes. All I ate yesterday was a loaf of bread. A whole loaf? I salivate at the thought. It's been moons since I've had a good slice. Though I can't imagine the stale bricks we trade for in the market could hold a candle to a fresh loaf from the royal kitchen. I itch to remind Amari of her good fortune, but my own stomach twists and turns with emptiness. Yesterday passed without one meal. If I don't eat soon, my stomach too will growl. Dezane reaches into the pockets of his black pants and pulls out Mama Agba's weathered map. We follow his fingers as it trails towards the coast from Aloran, stopping just outside a dot marking the settlement of Sokoto. We're about an hour out, he says. It's the best place to stop before we head into Chernobyl. There will be merchants and food, but we'll need something to trade. What happened to the coin from the sailfish? Dezane dumps out my pack. I groan as a few silver pieces and Amari's headdress fall to the ground. Most of it was lost in the fire. Dezane sighs. What can we trade? Amari asks. Dezane stares at the finery of her dress. Even with dirt stains and a few burn marks, its long, elegant cut and lined silk scream of noble origin. Amari follows Dezane's eyes and her brows knit. You cannot be serious. It'll trade for good coin, I jump in. And we're going to the jungle for God's sake. You'll never make it through in that. Amari scans my draped pants and cropped dashiki, gripping the fabric of her dress tighter. I'm amazed she thinks she has a choice when I could hold her down and cut it off with ease. But what will I wear? Your cloak. I point to the dingy brown cloth. We'll trade the dress for some food and get new clothes along the way. Amari steps back and looks at the ground. You were willing to evade your father's guards to save the scroll, but you won't take off your stupid dress. I didn't risk everything because of the scroll. Amari's voice cracks. For a moment her eyes glimmer with the threat of tears. My father killed my best friend. Your best friend or your slave? Zell, Dezane warns. What? I turn to him. Do your best friends press your clothes and make your food without pay? Amari's ears redden. Binta was paid. A mighty wage, I'm sure. I am trying to help you. Amari clenches the skirts of her dress. I've given up everything to help you people. You people, I fume. We can save the diviners. You want to save the diviners, but you won't even sell your damn dress. Fine. Amari throws her hands in the air. Skies, I'll do it. I never said no. Oh, thank you, gracious princess, savior of the Magi. Cut it out. Dezane nudges me as Amari walks behind Nayla to change. Her delicate fingers move to the buttons on her back, but she hesitates, glancing over her shoulder. I roll my eyes as Dezane and I look the other way. Princess. You need to lay off, Dezane mutters as we face the natal mahogany lining the vibrant forest of Sokoto. A small family of blue baboons swing from the branches, shaking the glossy leaves free when they pass. If she can't handle being around a diviner not enslaved by her father, she's free to return to her little palace. She hasn't done anything wrong. She hasn't done anything right either. I nudged Zane back. Why is he so insistent on defending her? It's as if he really thinks she deserves better, like somehow she's the victim. I'm the last person to give a noble a chance, but Zell, look at her. She just lost her closest friend, and instead of grieving, she's risking her life to help magi and diviners. I'm supposed to feel bad because her father killed the one magi servant she liked? Where's her outrage been all these years? Where was she after the raid? She was 6. Zane keeps his tone flat. A child, just like you. Except she got to kiss her mother that night. We didn't. I turned to Mount Nayla, positive I've given Amari enough time, but when I glance over, her bare back is still exposed. Oh my gods! My heart lurches as I take in the gruesome scar carved along Amari's spine. The mark ripples across her skin, so ghastly it makes my own skin tingle with pain. What? Zane turns just before Amari whips around, sucking in his breath at the mark. Even the scar lining Baba's back don't look half as hideous as hers. How dare you? Amari scrambles to cover herself with the cloak. I wasn't trying to peek, I say quickly. I promise, but gods, Amari, what happened? Nothing, an accident when my brother and I were young. Zane's jaw drops. Your brother did that to you? No, not on purpose. It wasn't. He didn't. Amari pauses, trembling with an emotion I can't place. You wanted my dress, you have it. Let us trade and be on with it. She holds her cloak close and mounts Nayla, keeping her face hidden. With nothing more we can say, Zane and I have no choice but to follow suit. He mumbles an apology before urging Nayla ahead. I try to apologize as well, but the words stall when I look at her cloaked back. Gods. I don't want to imagine what other scars hide along her skin. The weather warmed as we reach the forest clearing that marks the settlement of Sokoto. Kaside and children run along the bank of the crystal clear lake, squealing with delight when one young girl falls in. Travelers set up camp between the trees and muddy patches. Merchant carts and wagons line up their wares along the rocky shore. One cart's aroma of spiced antelope meat envelops me, making my stomach rumble. I was always told that before the raid, Sokoto was home to the best healers. People traveled from all over Orisha, hoping to be cured by the magic of their touch. As I surveyed the travelers, I try to imagine what that might look like. If Baba were still with us, he might have liked this. A moment of refuge after losing our home. So peaceful, Amari breathes, clutching her cloak as we slide off. You've never been here before? Zane asks. She shakes her head. I barely left the palace. Though crisp air fills my lungs as we walk, the sight reawakens the memory of burning flesh. In the lake, I see the calm waves of the floating market back home. The coconut boat I should be in as I fight with Kana for a hand of plantain. But like Aloran, the market's gone, all burnt at the bottom of the sea. The memories sit among the charred lumber. Another piece of me taken by the monarchy. You two trade the dress, Zane says. I'll take Nayla to get a drink. See if you can find a few canteens. I chafe at the prospect of trading with Amari, but I know she won't leave my side until she gets new clothes. We part ways with Zane, traveling through the campsites toward the row of merchant carts. You can relax. I arch my eyebrow. Amari flinches whenever someone so much as looks her way. They don't know who you are, and no one cares about your cloak. I know that. Amari speaks quickly, but her stance softens. I've just never been around people like this. How terrifying. Orishans who exist to do more than to serve you. Amari inhales sharply but swallows any retort. I almost feel bad. Where's the fun if she doesn't fight back? Skies, look at that! Amari slows as we pass a couple setting up their tent. The man uses vines to bind dozens of long, thin branches into a cone, while his partner creates a protective layer by piling on moss. Can people really sleep in those? Part of me itches to ignore her, but she stares at the simple tent as if it's made of gold. We used to build those all the time when I was young. Do it right, and it'll even keep out snow. You get snow in Aloran? Again her eyes sparkle, like snow is an ancient legend about the gods. How strange that she was born to rule a kingdom she's never even seen. In Abaddon, I answer. We lived there before the raid. At the mention of the raid, Amari goes quiet. The curiosity vanishes from her eyes. She grips her cloak tighter and keeps her focus on the ground. Is that what happened to your mother? I stiffen. How can she be bold enough to ask this when she can't even ask for food? I apologize if that's too forward. It's just that your father mentioned her yesterday. I picture Mama's face. Her dark skin seemed to glow in the absence of sun. She loved you fiercely. Baba's words echo in my mind. She would be so proud right now. She was a magi, I finally answer. A powerful one at that. Your father's lucky she didn't have her magic during the raid. My mind returns to the fantasy of Mama wielding her magic, a lethal force instead of a helpless victim. She would have avenged the fallen magi, marching on Lagos with an army of the dead. She'd be the one to wrap a black shadow around Saren's neck. I know this won't change anything, but I'm sorry. Amari whispers so quietly I can barely hear her. The pain of losing a person you love, it's... She squeezes her eyes shut. I know you hate my father. I understand why you hate me too. As grief breaks through Amari's face, the very hatred she speaks of cools inside me. I still don't understand how her handmaiden could have been anything more than another servant to her, but there's no denying her sorrow. No, I shake my head as guilt swells in the space between us. Grieving or not, she doesn't get my pity, and she's not the only one who gets to pry. So has your brother always been a heartless killer? Amari turns to me, brows raised in surprise. Don't you think you can ask about my mother and hide the truth about that awful scar? Amari steadies her vision on the merchant carts, but even so, I see the past playing out behind her eyes. It wasn't his fault, she finally answers. Our father forced us to spar. With actual swords? I jerk my head back. Mama Agba made us train for years before we were allowed to pick up a staff. Father's first family was coddled. Her voice grows distant, weak. He said they died because of it. He wouldn't allow the same thing to happen to us. She speaks as if this is normal, like all loving fathers spill their children's blood. I always pictured the palace as a safe haven, but my gods, is this what her life has been like? Tzain would never do that. I purse my lips. He'd never hurt me. Enan didn't have a choice. Her face hardens. He has a good heart. He's just been led astray. I shake my head. Where does her loyalty come from? All this time I thought of those noble blood were safe. I never imagined what cruelty the monarchy could inflict on their own. Good hearts don't leave scars like that. They don't burn villages down. They don't wrap their hands around my throat and try to bury me in the ground. When Amari doesn't reply, I know that's the last we'll talk of her brother. Fine. If she won't tell the truth about Enan, neither will I. I swallow his secret into silence, instead focusing on the roasted antelopente meat as we near the merchant carts and wagons. We're about to approach an elderly trader with a robust supply when Amari tugs on my pack. I never thanked you for saving my life, back in Lagos. She shifts her gaze to the ground. But you did try to kill me twice, so perhaps it all cancels out. It takes me a second to realize she's joking. I'm surprised when I grin. For the second time today, she smiles and I get a glimpse of why it was so hard for Tzain to look away. Ah, two lovely ladies, an elderly Poseidon says, beckoning us closer. He steps forward, his gray hairs glinting under the sun. Please. The merchant's smile widens, carving wrinkles into his leathery skin. Come in, I promise you'll find something you like. We walk around to the front steps of his wagon, pulled by two cheetnaires so large we stand eye to eye. I run my hands along their spotted fur, stopping to finger the grooves in the thick horn protruding from one's forehead. The rider purrs and licks my hands with its serrated tongue before I step inside the extensive space of wares. The musk of old fabrics hit me as we pass through the crowded wagon. On one end, Amari fingers through the old clothes while I stop and inspect a pair of suede Mungix hide canteens. "What are you in the market for?" the merchant asks, holding an array of sparkling necklaces. He leans in, magnifying the deep-set eyes that mark those from Orisha's northern border. "These pearls come from the bays of Jamaica, but these glittering beauties come from the mines of Calabrar. Sure to turn any fella's head. Though I'm sure you have no problems in that department." "We need traveling supplies," I smile. "Canteens and some hunting gear, maybe flint. How much do you have?" "What can we get for this?" I hand him Amari's dress and he unfolds it, holding it up to the light outside. He runs his fingers along the seams like a man who knows his cloth, taking extra time to inspect the burns around the hem. It's well made, no denying that. Rich fabric, excellent cut. I could do without the burns, but nothing a new hem can't fix. "So," I press, 80 silver pieces." "We won't take any less than—" "I'm not in the business of haggling, dear. My prices are fair and so are my offers. 80 is final." I grit my teeth, but I know there's no talking him up. A merchant who's traded all over Orisha can't be swindled like an insulated noble. "What can we get with 80? Amari asks, holding up a pair of yellow draped pants and a black sleeveless dashiki. "With those clothes, these canteens, a skinny knife, a few pieces of flint." The merchant begins filling up a woven basket, gathering supplies to get us on our way. "Is it enough?" Amari whispers. "For now," I nod. "If he throws in that bow—" "You can't afford it," the merchant cuts in. "But what if this does not end at the temple?" Amari lowers her voice. "Won't we need more money? More food, supplies?" "I don't know." I shrug. "We'll figure it out." I turn to leave, but Amari frowns and reaches into the depths of my pack. "How much for this?" She pulls out her jeweled headdress. The merchant's eyes bulge out of his head as he stares at the priceless adornment. "My gods," he breathes. "Where on earth did you find that?" "It doesn't matter," Amari says. "How much?" He turns the headdress over in his hands, and his mouth falls open when he sees the diamond-studded snow lepanaire. He lifts his gaze to Amari, slow and deliberate. He looks to me, but I keep my face even. "I cannot take this." He pushes the headdress away. "Why?" Amari shoves it into his hands. "You'll take the dress off my back, but not the crown off my head?" "I can't." The merchant shakes his head, but now that the gold sits in his hand, his conviction wavers. "Even if I wanted to, there's nothing I can trade. It's worth more than everything I have." "Then how much can you give?" I ask. He pauses, fear dancing with greed. He looks back at Amari once more before staring at the headdress shining in his hands. He removes a ring of keys from his pocket and pushes aside a crate to reveal an iron safe. After unlocking and opening it, he inspects the glowing pile of coins inside. 300 golden pieces. I lurch forward. That kind of coin could last our family a lifetime, maybe 2. I turn to celebrate with Amari when the look on her face brings me back. "I wouldn't have this if it weren't for my handmaiden. It is the only thing of hers I have left." There was so much pain in her eyes, pain I recognized, pain I wore when I was young, the first time my family couldn't pay a royal tax. For months, Tizain and Baba worked the sunfish harvest from dawn to dusk. At night, they took extra work from the guards. They did everything possible to keep me out of it, but eventually their efforts fell short. That day I entered the floating market, Mama's gold amulet in hand. It was the only thing of hers that we could recover, torn to the ground when the guards dragged her away. After Mama died, I grasped that amulet like it was the last remaining piece of her soul. I still rub my neck sometimes, plagued by its absence. "You don't have to do this." It stings to say those words in the face of so much gold. But ripping myself from Mama's amulet felt like ripping away her heart. a pain so harsh I couldn't even wish it on Amari. Her eyes soften and she smiles. You mocked me for not wanting to take off my dress before, but you were right. I was fixated on what I've already lost. But after everything my father's done, my sacrifices will never be enough. Amari nods to the merchant, making her final decision. I couldn't save Binta, but with the gold from this sale, we could save the diviners. I stare at Amari as the merchant takes the headdress and piles the gold into velvet bags. Take the bow, he beams. Take whatever you like. Gazing around the wagon, my eyes land on a sturdy leather pack decorated with circles and lines. I lean in to inspect its firm textures, but stop when I realize the design is composed entirely of dotted crosses. I run my hands over the disguised clan mark, the secret symbol of Oya, my sister deity. If the guards ever recognized the truth hidden in the bag's design, they could seize the merchant's entire cart. They might even cut off his hands. Be careful, the merchant shouts. I snatch my hand back before I realize he's talking to Amari. She turns an empty hilt over in her hands. What is this, no blade? Point it away from yourself and give it a flick. Like with a staff, a flick of the hilt extends a long blade with a lethal curved point. It glides through the air with a deadly grace, surprisingly nimble in Amari's small hands. I'll take this. If you don't know how to use it, the merchant warns, why do you assume I don't? I arch my eyebrow at Amari and think back to her mention of a training accident. I assume the scar from her brother's sword, but was she holding a sword too? Despite her escape from Lagos, I can't imagine the princess locked in battle. The merchant packs up our collection of coins and goods and sends us on our way, giving us everything we need to travel to Cena Noble. We walk back to meet Tzain in silence, but between the scar, the headdress, and the sword, I don't know what to think. Where's the spoiled princess I wanted to choke to death? And can she actually wield a sword? As we pass a papaya tree, I pause, shaking the trunk until a yellow fruit falls. I give Amari a few moments to move forward before whipping the bright papaya at her head. For a heartbeat, Amari appears oblivious. How will I explain this? But as the fruit whistles near, she drops her basket and whips around, new blade extended, speed unmatched. I gape as the ripe papaya falls to the ground, sliced in two clean halves. Amari smiles and picks up a piece, taking a triumphant bite. If you wish to hit me, you will have to try a little harder than that. Okay, that's where we end chapter 13. So again, hitting what are 3 to 4 main ideas, writing a summary of this, and really focusing on what is the growth and character development we've seen here with Zelly especially. We're getting to know Amari a little bit better. We're figuring out who she is, her motivations, and what has made her who she is. But we're starting to see Zelly change into a new character and with new perspectives here. So make sure you have that within your summary and within your character notes. And on the next video, we'll continue with chapter 14. Have a great day.